I don't know if you guys have seen the new Adidas Star Wars line celebrating the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back, but yo, that's my Jawn! Hey yo, displace the guilt and embrace. What's good, friends and family, neighbors, near and far? Welcome to the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast, the podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life, dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I am your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. Dwayne The Rock Johnson, a.k.a. Ethan Livingston Swaggle, a.k.a. that guy, when you ask him how he's been, always replies, I'm here, a.k.a. Alexander Scarchild, a.k.a. Nader Tots, a.k.a. Jawn Bon Jovi, a.k.a. John E. Carson, a.k.a. Nate 3.0, back here with another episode, Faux Dat Ass. As always, I hope this podcast finds you in good health and in good spirits. You know, one of the things that I've gained since starting this podcast is a strong sense of gratitude that I have been given the chance to sit down and not just have these fantastic conversations with people whom I respect and to be able to share that with you, but that I also get to learn things about them that probably never would have come up in a passing back and forth. I had such an amazing talk with my guest today that may have gone longer than usual and honestly could have gone 5 times as long. And because of that, this week, I am going to spare you the monologue of a guy who loves to hear his own voice and get right to the interview. My guest today is an incredibly talented musician whose dedication to his craft has taken him from playing alongside tapes and CDs in his bedroom to touring the US and Europe with the bands Movies with Heroes and Further Seems Forever. A Temple graduate, he can currently be seen playing saxophone in the outfit Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties, the solo project from Wonder Years frontman Dan Campbell. But beyond all of that, he's just a great fucking guy. It is my honor to welcome to the podcast, Chiemena Ukazim. It's been very weird because like you were saying, like random gigs and stuff like that. Like I've gotten messages for gigs and like to have to ask the question like, well, what is your seating like? Where am I set?
Yes.
You know, like it feels so weird to be so like
it makes me feel like more. I suppose I'm a little bit of a diva as I have my mustache curled and just did it right before the podcast. And my wife just gave me a shape up, but I feel like even more of one. I got asked to fill in for a band on bass. Oh, by the way, my wife just revealed to me that I say bass with a Z and not with like I play the bass.
Okay.
That's a foreign thing. Everybody, I think the people from whom I learned that word, they say bass. So I think bass is like when you're playing tag and you're like, bass.
Yeah, you're on bass. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, but when you're playing this instrument, it's like I play the bass, but I heard that it's actually supposed to be the same thing. So I get an offer for that, and I'm like, okay, is the show outside? Because I want to know. And they're like, yeah, the show's outside, all this kind of stuff. Come to find out, it's the day after we're going to have a son, so I had to turn the gig down. And I was like, I said, is it outside? And I said, will you be offended if I wear a mask? Because if so, I'm going to turn on a gig. If they're like, oh, man, yeah, that'll look weird. I'm like, okay, well, I can't play. I can't play, but at least I wanted to know, just like you're saying, those random questions that I never had to ask before.
Right. It's a whole new weird world. Yeah. Everybody, you just jumped in the middle of our conversation. My guest today, Chiemena Ukazim. Did I do that right? I've been practicing that I've been practicing all day. It's the first time I ever actually looked at someone's Facebook pronunciation of how to use their name and put it to practice. But I am so thankful that you're here joining me to have this conversation. But yeah, dude, it's weird times, man. It is weird times. And, like you said, it's so, I don't know if we're recording at this point, but that there's no finite kind of end or start to something new. The only thing I have is like, well, at least Mandalorian season 2 comes out next month.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I was gonna wear. That's the only thing I forgot to do. I was gonna wear the shirt. My wife got me like the wanted one with like it says like the child is on there and just says like wanted above it, like his little like bounty poster. So I was gonna wear that, but you're completely right. As in, like right now, somebody asked me, because right now I'm teaching. I teach almost every day, but it's just like we're doing right now, except I'm like here like this. You know, like, hey, can you hear me okay? Right? I'm doing this all day long, and one of my younger students is like, when are we gonna go back to being at George's? And I said, I honestly can't tell you when. And for the older people, I'm like, I can't tell you when I'm going to be comfortable being in a 5x5 room for 8 hours a day with a new person coming in every half hour, and we're close enough to touch knees. Yeah. So even if that person like comes and goes, for me, I'm still in there. I said, I'm not a claustrophobic person normally, but I was getting claustrophobic thinking about it. Like, whoa, you know, it just feels a lot of strange. And then in addition to that, it's not as if I can get up and go, and when the lesson is over, I'm still going to be in there. So, the last bit of it is, just like you were talking about with gigs, I could not predict somebody else's, for lack of a better term, COVID hygiene.
Yeah.
Meaning they could never have any type of precaution and then just put on the mask when they're coming to have a lesson with me because I require it. And then half an hour later, they do nothing for the next 7 days and then put the mask on when they come back in. Yeah. So they could be COVIDing everywhere. And that's not a verb, but I made it one.
But it's fun. You know, I work in a warehouse, and we have truck drivers that come through all the time. And like we've had people come through, and like, you know, we're like, we can't let you in without a mask. And I've had truck drivers straight say, I don't have a mask. And I'm like, where are you? Like, where? Like, you can't go anywhere. I don't understand you at all. What are you doing? But you know, I just like I said, I'm happy to have you here because first of all, I love you. You know, it's we you know, brother. Since the minute we met, we hit it off very well, and I've always appreciated conversations with you. So, you know, like I said, I was really happy to be able to get you on here. You know, when
thanks for having me.
Yeah. Why don't you tell these classy people who listen and watch this show a little bit about yourself, where you're from and where you grew up?
All right. Like Nate said, my name is Chiemena. I suppose this would be the time that I should say like all my names. So my name is Chiemena Emenike Onyedikachi Ukazim.
Oh, goddamn.
But usually, you know, people, what's your name? I'm like, Chiemena. And I'll say it with no accent just because it's a little bit easier to get. But it's like a staircase. Like, Chiemena is what my name actually is. But I digress. So, I'm from Nigeria. So, because I am. But I was born in Dallas, Texas, strangely enough. But I did not live in the States after that point. I was here for 8 days. And then I went back to Cameroon, and then lived in Oman in the Middle East, and then lived in Nigeria for 6 months, and then came back here when I was 4 and something. So essentially, I'm an immigrant because I don't remember the first 8 days that I was an American citizen.
Sure. Yeah. But it counts. It counts. It
right? Counts, yeah. Thankfully. Yep. So I have dual citizenship here and Nigeria. And we came to Pennsylvania after living in Texas for 2 years. We came in 89. So I guess you could say like my home state now is Pennsylvania because I was only born in Texas and lived in Texas for a little bit. Yeah. Loads of family there, but I've been here, lived in Collegeville, then lived in Souderton, then lived in Quakertown, then Bethlehem, and now I live in North Wales.
The greatest place in the world.
I actually really like it here.
It's great. It's fantastic. Yeah. One of my stretch goals for this podcast is to get Jawn on the show. Shoot. And he is from North Wales. And we got to have that happen. That's one of the main reasons I want him on, is because I just want to have a conversation with him about like the only Wawa, right? You know, like
yes. You should start having like people like on the sly start covering tunes of theirs, So like it starts to drum up a little bit of something.
So funny story. I actually have worked on a cover of "Had I Known You Better Then" from Abandoned Luncheonette. Yeah, and the reason I have it on lock that I can just pull out at any point is just in case John Oates is home, because I believe his parents still live in North Wales and he still comes to the area every once in a while. Just in case he stops in at Tex-Mex and I'm playing there, I want to bust it out. Also, I can't sing it. All I can sing are the harmonies. So he will have to do the song and I will just play it and do the harmonies for me.
Yes.
Anyway, so that's
I
my
like
little
that.
North Wales love. So Texas, you have family there. Is that how you were born there, or?
My parents went and got my mom got her bachelor's and master's there. My dad got a master's and doctorate at Texas A&M. And then they went and started teaching at University of Houston. So my first sister was born in College Station, which is where A&M is. Then my next sister, next oldest, was born in Houston, where they were living there. I think to this date, Houston has the largest gathering of Nigerians in the United States.
Really?
So I'm not sure why Nigerians liked Houston, but my dad was one of the first. And then he brought my mom over 2 years later, and that was still in Virginia. But I think we just like knew people then, and the people that my mom first lived with in the United States when she lived in West Virginia, they had moved to Dallas, Texas by then. So when she came back to have me, she left my dad and my two sisters overseas, came by herself, had me. Then they did like my baby dedication, and then I left. So I think she came back because that was like a nice spot. So she came to the hospital, St. Paul's Hospital in Texas. So that became like a little bit of a home base. I don't have loads of family here in the States. I still only have like an uncle on each side and a couple cousins. But all of them are based in Texas, Houston in particular, except for one uncle that's in Florida. So yeah, mostly Texas is a place where I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's really humid in Houston or something, and the weather feels like it's pretty good. Because my dad always finds everything to be super cold. He's like, Chiemena, it's always so cold. So they finally moved out west. They live in Arizona now, and he's very happy about it because he doesn't like the Pennsylvania cold.
That's excellent.
What I really think it is that he didn't know. But my sister the doctor said it's hereditary. I think he has Raynaud syndrome, as I do, which is where your extremities, like your hands and your feet, at the first sign of cold, they act like it's like 30 degrees lower than what it actually is.
Okay.
So your hands will start going numb really quickly, your toes will go numb, and they start doing like the frostbite process. So in like 50-degree weather, high 40s, my hands will turn like pale yellow and all the blood leaves them. So I'm wearing gloves and all that stuff. I'm not cold, but my hands think it's freezing.
How does that affect playing? Does it?
Oh, it sucks, mate. Like when it makes those practices where people are like, it's going to be a little bit chilly, but like, we can get the practice in. It makes them almost impossible. At shows, if it's like the venue's a little cool and it's the winter time or anything like that, I'm like wearing gloves inside just to try to keep my hands at that level. And I thought it was just like a thing, but now, like right now, the air conditioning's on. I have a very pregnant wife, and she's very, very warm. And if I'm teaching with the AC on, after about 2 lessons, the room starts getting cool enough, not for anybody else, but enough that my hands start to get like sludgy. Like they start moving a little bit slower. I can still play the same speed, but I have to fight it way more. Yeah. And then my toes will go numb in the car with the AC on. Just drive it in the summer. It's gotten worse as I've gotten older. So I've been trying to do like yoga to see if I can increase circulation, but it's my brain telling my hands that, save yourselves.
That's
circle
really
the wagons. You know what I mean? So it's freaking annoying, but I'm starting to get, I guess, like used to it. So I kind of plan for it. My wife got me these like heated socks. I'm not even kidding. They pull up to your knee, and they have these little battery packs that you can put in them, and it powers like these wires that are throughout the socks, and they warm my feet. So
it's awesome. That's awesome. That's love.
It's very dad of me, but like it works. So,
dude, it sounds practical to me. Like, and that might just come with old age. But I'm like, that's legit. You found yourself a solution. Yeah. But, so, growing up, like, when did music kind of enter your life? Like, what do you remember? Like, so you were all over the place early on. Mm-hmm. Do you like remember different types of music, or was there just what was kind of playing around the house? I guess.
That one's kind of fun because my parents both, they both sang in various choirs in Nigeria. At one point, my dad was a choir director while he was waiting to get his visa to come to the States. They've always been in like plays and things like that. And then in Nigeria, at least I'll speak for Igbo people. Igbo people, there's a lot of singing that goes on throughout everything. You sing at work, you sing at church, you sing at funerals, you dance at funerals, like all that music is just a part of life. So with my parents, my mom says, like I remember things really young, but my mom says that I used to stand on the table and she'd have me sing for like guests that come to our house. So I've been performing on some level since then, but when we were all through growing up, we were always going to like various churches, and me and my sisters would sing like 4-part harmonies or 3 parts before my voice dropped. So we're all, this used to be like a thing where I don't think I'd be exaggerating to say at some points we were doing some type of performance as a family between like 20 and 30 times a year type of thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Going to different schools and doing that kind of stuff. So being on this stage, that's kind of been not always, but since I was like 4, we would do various things there. In terms of music around the house, that one's fun because everything that I know about music that isn't church music, I had to learn like late teens, early 20s because my parents didn't have anything in the house but like gospel stuff. So it's hilarious. My wife will be like, this song will come on. My wife's like, ooh, yeah, I remember this one, and start singing all the words. And she's like, have you ever heard this song? I'm like, no, I haven't. She's like, what? How could you have missed this? This song was everywhere. And I was like, yeah, I was not. I was at church. Sometimes I'd hear some songs at the barber shop when I was there. That's the first time I heard Boys to Men. I didn't even know who it was. I didn't even know what the song was. I just heard the song and I was like, oh shoot, I can't dance to this because mom will get angry, but I know it's good, right? So I wasn't exposed to anything that anybody would know. I was still playing. I started playing. My first instrument was saxophone at 11. So I had the opportunity to play piano, but I have 3 sisters. And I was the only boy, and for some reason I had it in my head that since my sisters were playing piano, I didn't want to play what they were playing. Not that I didn't like them, but be like, I'm a dude, I want to play something else. Yeah. So I had it in my head that I wanted to play saxophone. So I started playing saxophone for a couple years, and then unbeknownst to me, as a Nigerian parent will do, they will do something or put something in place and then tell you that it is done. So my dad comes home from church one day and he's like, Chiemena, I spoke to Pastor Jawn and I told him that you are going to start playing saxophone for church, right? I never played saxophone for church. I'm 14 years old. There is no saxophone music. They give me a mic and I just like had to start. I now know it's called improvising. I just tried to play along with the song. So that was my first like gig training on an instrument. Every Sunday, 52 weeks out of the year, I'm playing saxophone of some sort. So most of my cutting my teeth playing instruments was at church. I did that. Then I started playing bass around. Yeah, I started playing bass around the same time I was already playing saxophone, but not at church, just by myself. I had this like little half-size bass that I'd practice, listen to cassette tapes, and try to play along. I wanted to get bass and guitar lessons, bass first, but my dad said no because I was already taking saxophone. Not that he didn't like it, even though I think the saxophone was a more worthy instrument for Nigerian folk.
Really?
I think, yeah, because they associate the guitar with, not necessarily my parents, but at the time, they associate the guitar with, like, vagrants and drug use. Okay. I think the saxophone seems more polished. So, like, my dad, when I was little, he'd just be like, those musicians, they just smoke dope. And they have earrings and like all these things. Like, you know, I have 5 of them now, so it always makes me laugh. But growing up, it wasn't bad at all. It wasn't that. And I didn't even know that I was necessarily not listening to a large amount of other kinds of music because I was never exposed to it. Right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, and then all my friends were like church friends, and most of them weren't listening to anything. So I would hear stuff in a movie. I'd hear stuff over like, you know, the speaker system when you're in the store. But I was never like, so I'd hear a couple songs, but everything I learned, I had to go back and like catalog it. So I know loads of classic rock now because I'm into guitar. I love hip hop. But there's loads of hip hop that I don't know because when I was trying to do the back catalog, I was devouring anything that I could play on guitar.
Okay.
I was devouring anything that I could play on bass or saxophone. And bass a little bit, yeah, you can get some like bass lines in hip hop. But most of the time, they're the same bass line. And again, that's not bad. I love loops. I love all that. But I was trying to like, everything that I wanted to learn something that I couldn't do. Something that I couldn't play. So I get obsessed with Women Band and learn like everything that they had. So I had this whack idea that when you buy a CD, I couldn't get another CD till I learned how to play everything on the CD. So I would just sit in my room by myself and just listen to the song, run through the album until I could play like the whole album just like front to back because I thought that's how you did things. And since I couldn't take guitar lessons, I'm like, I guess this is how people learn how to play guitar.
Wow.
So it was fun. So that growing up, it was that always surrounded by music, but never thought it was going to be something that I was going to do for a living.
Yeah.
Because both my parents are highly educated. Music is like a side thing, and it's not supposed to be your main thing, you know?
Yeah. So what do your parents do?
They're both now retired, but to promote this area a little bit, yeah, they both taught at Monco.
Oh, all right.
They've always been professors. So my dad taught at Monco for, I think it was like 27 years. He taught mathematics there and sometimes physics. He also taught at Temple for a little bit, Swarthmore. We first came to the state or to Pennsylvania because of teaching. My dad got involved with something called Project Seed, and that was trying to teach algebra and higher math to inner city kids.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So it wasn't highly paying, and it wasn't necessarily the most rewarding kind of job because, you know, it's a lot. But he says that foraged like how to teach in any type of environment, how to teach anyone. So he ended up at Monco. My mom teaches English as a second language, or taught English as a second language at Monco. So most of my mates have never had a class from her, even if they've had them from my dad, because most of my mates, English is not their second language.
Yeah.
So it kind of works out like that. I have a couple people where they're like, wait, I took from your mom. She helped me so much. Now I can write sentences and all that. And that makes me feel good because English is her second language and kind of mine. But my parents wanted us to learn Igbo. That's the language that my name is in. So they spoke both at the same time. So to me, I just remember learning them or knowing both of those things. And that's just kind of how it was at home. So even now, if they call me, it is only when my wife is around that I'll realize that they're not speaking English because you just see it as the same type of deal.
Yeah. So here's a really stupid question that I like to ask when I know people were raised with different languages. When you dream, what dominantly do you dream? What language do you dominantly dream in?
Well, this is fun. English as a like, you know, if I had to put it into one word. However, the thing that I will say is with my Igbo, it's at the point right now where I could translate for anybody into English, straightforward, nonstop. But my Igbo speaking is really rusty because I have no one with whom to practice.
Gotcha.
What's weird about my dreams is I'm a person that I'm a sleep talker a lot of the time, but also kind of like wakeful dreaming. Yeah. And when I first wake up, when you're still in that haze, my Igbo is on point. Like I thought it was just in my head. So what I started doing, I wake up sometimes, I just start recording it. I'll record it and I'll just send it to my mom. And then like as I get more awake in my conscious mind takes over, then I start overthinking things. And, I don't want to mispronounce this word. And how do I say this word? And how does this happen? Because the language is completely tonal. It's like
really
it's like singing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you botch a word or if you say something with the wrong accent, you could actually be saying a different word than intended.
Okay. Yeah.
So in my dreams, it's still English, sometimes Spanish. But what happens now is like if I try to speak in Spanish, I'll just speak to you in Spanish. If I try to speak Igbo, I'll be speaking Igbo, and every time I run out of a word, I'll think of the Spanish word first, which is really frustrating. So like if someone could understand Igbo and Spanish, we'd have great conversation, because I just mixed the two right now. Yeah, it's freaking annoying.
That's wild, the way the brain kind of, forces that, or,
Yes.
but also can bring it back, because like my grandmother, before she passed, had dementia. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it was gradual, a little bit here, a little bit there. But in the end, it was really bad. But oddly, my grandmother played accordion, and she also played piano. Oddly, even as she was losing all of these memories of who people are and stuff like that, if she sat in front of a piano, or she sat and picked up her accordion, flawlessly could play anything. Like, it's still there. It's those neural pathways are that like ingrained.
I find that stuff utterly amazing.
Isn't it crazy?
Like completely fascinating.
Like your brain isn't working right, except
Yes.
for this one small little thing. It's like,
Yes.
oh no, I got this. Don't worry, we're good.
Yeah. And in some ways, and I tell this to people when I'm teaching, and they go like, and they look at me in shock, like I'm trying to say something rude, and I'm not. And people ask me, like, I'll play something, or they'll play something for me, and I'll just recite it back. And they're like, have you heard that song before? I'm like, no, I haven't. They're like, well, how did you know what to do? How did you play that and all this stuff? And I say, I know this thing better than I know anybody else on earth, better than I know my wife. I spend more time with this than I spend with my family. And they're like, oh, you don't say things like that. I'm like, well, I mean, even straight up, most people spend more time at work than they spend at home.
That's right.
So since this happens to be my work, then if I'm playing guitar for 8 hours a day, and then you come home and you see your family for 3 hours because people need to sleep, then the next day you do it again. So on average, you spend 40 hours with this instrument and 10 hours with your family per week, or 20 hours even. But still, 40 versus 20, the one number keeps adding up. Before I was with my wife, before I had children, anything like that, it was with this. Especially in my my semi-sheltered childhood, because a girl would call to talk to me on the phone about whatever, about Jesus. And like 5 minutes later, my mom picks up the phone and goes, hello, young lady. Have you conducted your business with my son? Right? So I have to get off the phone.
Yeah.
So if I'm not out like skating or doing something like this, I'm probably in practicing or reading a book. But those were the things that occupied my time. And then because I homeschooled all through high school, when my mates are going to school for 7-8 hours a day, I'm getting my schoolwork done in 3 or 4 at the most. And then at the time, like some of those years, I was playing like between 4 and 6 hours a day, every day. So I had so much time on my hands to get good at an instrument, or to just study it, or just to learn how to love it, right? Everybody's concept of good keeps evolving.
Sure.
So all I wanted to do was like play like MXPX and like have my guitar like somewhere around like my knees, because that's, and like stand cool, and sing like this in an atonal voice because it's so punk rock, right? That's all I wanted to do. So when that was achieved, then you start like trying to find out what else you can do to, push the limits of your supposed awesomeness.
Yeah. So, as you're kind of, taking the guitar and learning, CDs worth of material and stuff like that, what was kind of your gateway? Like, was there something that first like hit and you were like, oh, I need to learn everything about this? Yes.
So I think it was, well, with saxophone, the stuff I was learning on saxophone was actually classical. So I was listening to a bunch of classical at the time, and then we would go to this, I don't even know if it's still there. There used to be, I know this isn't there, but back in the day, there used to be a James Way in Souderton. The Souderton exit off on 113. There was a James Way and an Ames across the street from each other or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And then there was a store. Fret's Music was a store near there. I used to take saxophone there, but kind of down the street a little bit, there was a strip of stores that were all owned by, I think most of them were like Mennonite owned, even though I think there was a Rudy's Pizza in there too. And there was a place called Providence Bookstore, and they had like, well, I'm old, so they had tapes. They ended up having CDs, and it was the kind of thing where you remember you used to be able to go into a music store and like you could ask for like, oh, I want to listen to this one, and you go put it in and put your headphones on and just like. So I saw this picture of MXPX's. They had this character called like the Poconacha Punk or whatever. And I saw this picture, and I knew right away, I'm like, my mom's not going to like whatever this music is. And I wasn't doing it to spite her, but I needed to find out what that was. So I put this tape on. The album was called Poconacha. And it was like the fast, like super horrible sounding, like really, like the distortion didn't sound like distortion. It just sounded like they're playing through like a Boss, like Metal Zone type of thing. But I needed to learn how to play whatever that tone was. And this is still on bass. And they just rocked so hard. So that MXPX album, I was just like, okay, I need that. That was the thing that I knew. I didn't even know like what MXPX looked like at the time. I didn't know it was called punk music. I just knew that there was something that caught me with that type of sound. So this was before like metal. This was before really, really getting into like listening to a lot of jazz. I just wanted to play like that. So punk rock, I can say, is the first thing that ever called me to, probably put me in the position to end up playing music for a living.
That's
was
amazing.
Just listening to that. It was glorious. So I didn't know anything about NoFX or any of those guys. I didn't know that the guys I was listening to listened to NoFX, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing where people are like, oh, I hate the Beatles. And believe it or not, I'm not the biggest Beatles fan in general, but I know so much came out of the Beatles, and I listen to so many bands that I find out that the Beatles are their main influence. So kind of like, so when I was listening to punk rock that could be sold in like Christian stores, I didn't know that they're all listening to punk rock that's not in Christian stores, and they're kind of not ripping off of it, but that's what they're influenced by. So I ended up being able to learn that type of style of music without ever being in the actual real punk world, if that makes sense.
That's it. No, that makes total sense. Like that's really awesome, especially because like of all bands, MXPX, like that's like
yes,
that's pretty awesome. So around this time, are you playing with anybody else, or like are you trying to start a band or anything like that? Or
the first band I was in, like MXPX, and playing on bass. And back then I had no intention of playing guitar. I was just playing bass. Guitar happened because I came upstairs at Fret's Music, waiting for my parents to pick me up from my saxophone lesson, and I heard somebody he was doing something like this. He was doing that. He was playing Summertime, and it caught me, and I was like, oh, what's that? So after that, I went and I asked my sisters if I could use their guitar, and I started trying to find out where that was. Didn't end up playing in a band until I was, well, besides like playing at church and playing bass or playing saxophone for that, I didn't end up playing in a band until I was 16. So that was my first ever like band situation. It was one of the guys in the band was a kid that I'd known since we were like 6 from like a church that I went to, and then we met this other kid when we were preparing. We did this thing where it's like it's not like Big Brother Big Sister, but it's like one of those things where kind of like a monk, where like, okay, for this amount of time you're going to keep this kind of grade average, you're not going to watch these kind of movies, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and the culmination is that you end up going to China for a month. So I did that when I was 16. We formed this band, so I'm playing guitar by then. One of my best mates, he ended up being my best man, is playing bass, and then we have a drummer. And he was super into Weezer, and I'd never heard of Weezer. So the only thing I knew about wheezing was like how asthmatic I was then and now. He's like, you ever heard of Weezer? You want to play some Weezer? I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. I heard the Blue album, and I was taken aback at how great it was. But it's still kind of like called to like my punk rock sensibilities, even though it's not punk rock, but that kind of feel. So That was the first time we were in a band. We named the band Love Lorn, with no idea that there was a much larger hardcore band named Love Lorn. Yeah. So when we found that out, we're like, oh crap. So we changed it to Love Lore. So that was the first time I'd ever been in a band, first time I'd ever had to try and like write a tune like very specifically, or like most of the lyrics. I had this thing where I was playing music enough that I had this, like, I feel like I still do sometimes. I always feel like the level of the lyrics will not match the level of the musicianship.
Okay.
So, like, I'm going to sully this song by using this lyrics over it. This lyrics is much too trite for how much I love music.
Yeah.
So my mate, he had all these poems, and we'd put his poems to, like, music that he'd write and that I'd write, and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, sometime I'll share that with you, or we'll have another one where like I just play like all these random songs from my 16-year-old self or something.
I'm on it. Yeah, that sounds that sounds fucking awesome. I would totally be into that. I will probably not play you the songs from when I was 16. There's some embarrassing things in there. I wrote a song, I think it was like the last podcast I talked about the very first song I ever wrote. Now I'm talking about the second song I ever wrote, was a country song called Al Sprinkler, My Father's My Uncle. And it was all about like, it was this weird like inbred country comedy song, and like it ends with him going to a family reunion and everybody's hitting on him, and like it's like this embarrassing kind of but so how long was that band together? Like was that a good deal of time? Or
we played from, I would say, the age of 16, mostly on, sometimes off. Didn't play loads of shows. We're always jamming, always rehearsing and all this stuff. Recorded some stuff probably till about at least, I would say, like till I was 19, maybe 20. 19 was like trying like another iteration of it. The guitarist from that band, he homeschooled as well, and he would have graduated with me. He would have graduated a year early. He still graduated, but he wasn't at the graduation, because he went on tour with a band called Further Seems Forever. So people might not know that band, but the singer of the band at that time is Chris from Dashboard Confessional.
That's why I know that name. Okay.
So most people know the band that came after that, which was Dashboard. Yeah. So he was going on tour with them. So when he was going on tour, we were kind of taking a break. And then my drummer, I think my drummer got engaged maybe. And then we started playing a little bit less, and I'm doing stuff here and there. But yeah, it lasted until then. We played a couple shows, a couple nice ones. We got to record. So I got to find that album somewhere. It's embarrassing, but not because it sounds bad, because I love to sing, but I don't necessarily like to hear my voice back, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. I have had people tell me songs I've recorded. They're like, oh, I could believe I could hear this on the radio. Like, it sounds that good. And all I hear is like, no, it can't, because I don't know how to record vocals, or something. Like something's wrong, but my voice does not sound right. And and like I've heard live recordings of me, and I don't have the same problem. It's only when I'm just recording like in a studio or something. I don't know what it is, but the voice just doesn't compute. It's not what I'm used to hearing. And I know there's the whole, bass of your head gives your voice a different sound inside, but no, it just, I can't.
I'm like, oh, is that what I sound like? Oh, and somebody's like, oh, I love that song. And I'm like, I used to walk out of the room when somebody's playing it back. I'm like, just tell me if the notes are on key. If that's good, all right, we're good. But people are like, oh, you want to listen to this? And I got to give it another shot, because I haven't recorded vocals as like the main singer in something in a long time. I've done background since, but never. I mean, that's soon to change. I'm forcing myself by buying all this gear that I'm going to start recording. And Mark Niebauer from Good Morning Daydreamer, one of the bands I'm in, he says he's going to teach me. So he's going to give me recording lessons.
You are like you have a long resume of bands, and it's one of the things that I absolutely adore, is just your commitment to just like, okay, I'm playing with these guys now. Like, but when did Movies with Heroes, when did that come about?
Movies with Heroes happened in 2003. And that was when my friend Ian was still doing tours with Further Seems Forever. So Movies with Heroes had a small tour booked, and I think their guitarist quit like right before the tour, like maybe 3 weeks to a month before the tour was supposed to happen. So my friend Skip was playing for Further on all their tours, but wasn't per se like on the records, like in the band in that kind of way.
Okay.
So they knew him as a fill-in because they, and they called him and they're like, "Yo, can you play for this tour?" And he's like, "Actually, I'm going to be out. I can't, but my friend Chem, he can do it." So I feel like the first time that I heard from them in 2003, I'm trying to remember how they got a hold of me, because I know this was like essentially before MySpace even. So okay. I think like I got like an email or like a phone call or something like, "Hey, we're Movies with Heroes, and we'd like you to play and go on this tour." I'd never been on tour before. I'd never done like anything like outside of the state, like for multiple days. So I'm super excited about it. Told my mom, she was semi-excited. My dad was not excited because it just sounded like, like career musician stuff. And I think he was trying to steer me away from that. And I was 20 at the time. And they send me a CD. And they said, "Okay, all your parts are going to be panned such and such," which kind of worked out for me because I had a broken Koss CD player. That was a hand-me-down from my friend Ian, and only the left side worked anyway. So I knew like mad albums, but just like the one guitar. I didn't even know there was another guitar. So thankfully that was panned left. So at this time I told you how I learned an album. So they sent me these songs to get familiar with them. I thought they sent me these songs to learn them. So I learned 10 songs cold. Every note, I'm playing it every day, doing all this stuff. I go to the rehearsal, which is like / tryout, and they're like, "Okay, which song would you like to learn first?" I said, we can play them, because I thought they're like testing me.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Wait, what do you mean? You learned them?" I'm like, "Yeah, I learned them. You sent me the CD. That's what I'm supposed to do, is learn them, right?" So it ended up working out. I went on that tour with them as a fill-in. But then they liked me and I liked them, so they asked me to start playing in that band on the regular. So that band is from Lancaster. Mm-hmm. So at the time, I was living in Quakertown. So Quakertown, my house in Quakertown is 100 miles one way from Lancaster. So every Monday night, I would drive, I would leave Monco, I'd come home, and then I'd drive 100 miles and have a 3-hour rehearsal, and then drive 100 miles back.
Wow.
I didn't even think of it as a wow. Like, now that I'm older, now I'm like, oh, I guess that's kind of there. Like, well, I guess that is kind of wow, yay. But at the time, like, I'm living in Quakertown. My parents are teaching at Monco. I'm going to Monco, so it's a 40-minute drive, and we don't even blink at that. So an hour and a half to get to go play music?
Sure.
Nothing. So I'm doing that on a semi-regular basis. 2006 comes along. We tour for a month in Europe. That whole Further Seems Forever thing just keeps coming back into my life, because this time there was going to be a tour of what's called Fields Forever. There was this band called Sensefield, and the lead singer of Sensefield became the lead singer of Further Seems Forever, and then they started doing like mashups of their songs after Further broke up. So they would do these things called Fields Forever, and they do the tours in mostly Europe, some shows in the States, but they were really huge in Europe. So they ask if the leader, the owner of our record label that we're on from Lancaster, he's also a tour manager. They asked him to manage a certain tour, and he says, yeah, can I bring one of my bands along? I'll do it if I can bring one of my bands, which was us. But then they had a fill-in for half the tour, but not for the second half. So they asked me to do half, and they're like, you know what? Why are we asking you to do half when we can just ask you to do the whole thing? So ended up that they sent me a VHS with some of the songs on there, and then they sent me a CD with a couple of their live versions of it, and then some just the old version. They said, okay, learn this and we'll like piece it together. So I was already in school for jazz at the time, and the guitarist from Further he has like a master's degree in jazz. So he's like, we'll get it done. And then we just started, like I rehearsed it by myself without them. And then the first time that we all played was the first day of the tour that happened in Jersey. Oof. So that was delicious for me. Like I got to play 2 sets a night. So first set is my band, heavily distorted rock and roll stuff. And then the second set, wipe myself down, get back on stage, and I play acoustic guitar for like an hour and a half. So like life couldn't have been better than playing two shows, 2 sets a night with 2 different bands. Like, yeah, so that was movies. And that was probably one of my greatest musical experiences with that summer, but that was also the time that I probably came, up until now, the closest to being like proper signed. Like the president or CEO of Epic Records was flirting with us, like really liking our stuff, and it was great, and we're close, and then he gets the sack, so he's fired, and like it was one of those things where the new guy's like, I'm just going to try to circle the wagons. I'm not going to, put myself out there and sign any new bands because that's just too risky. And this was like, we didn't know it at the time, but this was, I guess, like the beginning of the end for like record labels and signing bonuses, and like you can get signed and buy your house and, make a living off of just like selling records. Like, so it was right when like CDs, not that CDs were in the clunker yet, but streaming became popular, record labels kind of died, and then the technology was there that you don't necessarily need to have a record label to give you 30 grand to go record with this person. Now, like, you have a pretty powerful computer, and now you can, because with movies, that's what we were doing. We were recording all the stuff ourselves. Only time we sent something out was when we got 3 songs mixed by, I always say his name wrong, Ed Rose. He's a producer that produced like the Get Up Kids and a bunch of like emo bands at that time, along with like some rock and roll stuff. So
that's awesome. During that time, so like that sounds like it all happened so incredibly fast too. Like, hey, come here, and then all of a sudden, let's go to Europe, and then now you're playing in 2 bands. Could you even appreciate it at that time, or was it like just overwhelmed? Like, were you just like, all right, let me just ride this and see where this goes? And
I think so. I think because of Europe is strange sometimes, that you have a European tour and people might like you enough that we got signed, like the record got picked up by Rude Records and stuff like that. But when we're playing in the States, you're playing, half the dates on your tour are those shows where you end up just playing for the other bands, and like nobody shows up, and you're calling your girlfriend, now wife, and like, hey, this random person asked us, like said like, hey, you want to sleep over at our house? And it's nothing weird, but we don't know them, but she just said, hey, you can sleep at my house. So I sleep in the van, and like, touring with different bands and putting 12 dudes in a motel room. So even though like you're playing all these shows, you're not making any money. So when things are moving quickly, they're kind of not, in a way. Like the European tour seems like absolutely amazing. Even though I think I came back with like negative money. Even though I would never trade that experience for the world. My girlfriend, now wife, she lent me $900 to buy my round trip ticket. So she gives me 900. What's that?
That when you knew, you were like, yeah, all right.
No, I told her, they're like, yo, you need to marry this girl, man. Like, she's supporting your craft. So she gives me $900 to do this thing, and it was one of those times where it didn't make me any money, but it did give me some clarity, in a strange way. And one way is that at the time it was 2006. So I was 23, and I suffered from unbelievable amounts of heartburn at the time.
Okay.
So I'm at Temple. I'm taking 18 credits. I am in that band that's 100 miles away. I have a girlfriend that lives in Allentown at the time and then in Bethlehem. So I would wake up, go to Temple for the day, come back, work at the YMCA in Lansdale from 3 to 6 in this after school program. Then I would drive to Allentown, hang out with her, drive back to Quakertown, and wake up the next morning and do the whole process again, right? So I'm being stretched crazy thin. I just thought I suffered from heartburn, like the kind that's like you're going to burn a hole in your esophagus type of thing. Yeah. I just thought that was regular. I went to Europe, no heartburn for 30 days. So just because like my stress was down. Yeah. And then I didn't mention this before, but my wife just did a funny move. I didn't mention this before, but my father, his degree, his doctorate is in geophysics. So geophysics is like plate tectonics and reading for earthquakes and all this stuff. But he and one of his friends happened to devise a new way of searching for oil. So when I lived in all those places overseas, I'd live in the Middle East, but my dad would be in Yemen, Egypt, Saudi, this place, kind of overseeing things. He's the nerd that goes into a room full of tycoons and says, according to my calculations, but he doesn't wear glasses, if you drill here, there's oil. So it was a lucrative job for my family at the time. So we were traveling all around. So I had never known what not travel was till we came to Pennsylvania and actually stayed put for a while. We did some trips to Nigeria, but that's all we could do. So for me to get to travel, which is like the best thing for my family, that's what we do, and then to play music, I was like, oh, okay, this is the thing. And by then, I already had planned on going to school for music. So I know I already was. I was already in the jazz program during that tour. But up until that point, on a couple tours, I was like, oh, I think I want to do this all the time. I think this is what I can see myself doing 50 years from now. So that's kind of when it was slowly dawning on me that that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know in what capacity I was going to be doing it, but I don't think it moved. Now when I look back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this, you see how close you were to something? But at the time, it didn't feel like it moved too fast because we felt like we earned this, blood, sweat, and tears and all these tours and our van breaking down in the middle of this and all that kind of, all those real band stories. So we thought like it was our time to shine. And it kind of was. Yeah. Kind of.
So I recently saw that post on Facebook. What brought the band to the end? Just life? Like, was it just...
Yeah, I think like we set some ultimatums for ourselves. Like, okay, if we're putting our all into this, we want to see something happen by such and such date. And for me, it was that I was in jazz school. I was getting straight A's, but because of all the traveling I was doing and because of where my mind was divided, I wasn't doing badly in the music part of it. But if I'm paying a lot of money for music education and I'm getting by, essentially, I wanted to be able to pour myself into it. And if I wasn't pouring myself into it, I wanted a reason to justify it or I wanted to be put in a position where I'd have to quit school. And that at the time meant getting signed. Like where something real is going to happen. You're going to have real tour support. Somebody's going to be behind you, putting a lot of money behind your band so you can go and do that kind of thing. So if not, I wanted to pursue my schooling, pursue my relationships. Because at the time, everything that I did and every relationship that I had was subject to what I was doing musically. So if we have a date set for this date, if I get a gig, if I get anything, I'm taking the gig. That's how it was then. And at some point, I had to start to decide what kind of relationships I would have and what kind of person I would be later. So that's when all that came together. So I left at the end of the summer of 2006, kind of when we said like August 2006. The band still continued on in some shape or form, I believe, till 2008.
Okay.
I think that's when it happened. So there were like 1 or 2 more European tours, a couple fill-ins of some people, you know, and then like I feel like Jeremy's last show, the drummer, was, I can't remember if he left the same time I did, but I don't think, no, his last show and my last show were different. I came in and played on a couple tunes, and I feel like that was like maybe the next year afterwards, like 2007, I did something like that. But I think that's kind of what I wanted to pursue, that other part of my life. Jeremy, the drummer, was just having a kid with his wife. So, and then the other 2 guys, their lives, they were able to continue it for a little bit longer. So it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I need to go legit now. I just knew I was spending so much money at Temple. Well, it felt like so much money for me. Temple's a nice and expensive place. But I wanted to like really like put everything I could into that, because I had never played jazz before that point. I'd never played jazz on saxophone. So I'm in this program. All the kids that are around me, they all did jazz band through high school. That was my only regret. I didn't do jazz band. I didn't do marching band. So I had to like, I was at a deficit in terms of jazz, not in terms of performance. The stage, yeah, that's where I get to express myself. I don't mind performing. Every time I would get the juries at the end, every semester you have to play in front of judges at the end, right? Yeah. And they'd always say, great solo, very musical, more vocabulary. So I could play a solo, I could put on a show, but I wasn't really playing it in the jazz form. I wasn't playing enough jazz vocabulary. So I started really wanting to work on that. Like, if I'm going to do this, I might as well. I never necessarily intended on being solely a jazz musician. I just thought that was going to prep me the most for being able to do anything musically.
Yeah, I mean, the improvisation in jazz totally equips you to be able to just be as versatile as possible.
Yeah, and that's all I wanted. I just wanted to play music. That's all. Yeah.
So how does jazz and punk, how does that segue into metal? Like how...
So metal had metal had been something that I heard, and I think I liked the over the topness of it. Mm-hmm. Meaning punk rock at its core is supposed to be like super raw, really unpolished, talk about what I'm feeling, right? With jazz, it's like the height of like being able to improvise and all this stuff. But with metal, it had the elements of the classical stuff I was already playing. Mm-hmm. With saxophone, just like, or utter like shredding, and I just loved like I think it really was the theater of it, you know. So you grow your hair out, you got fans blowing on you, and you know, being a brown person with curly hair, like I was never gonna get to do the long hair thing, but I imagined it, you know, like what I would do with flowing hair. And then the stuff that I liked as a kid were super over the top. Like I loved He-Man, and He-Man, even if there's not metal music in it necessarily, it's so metal.
He-Man's
like,
metal.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like this sword and this thing and this outfit. I'm going to you know, like it's just, so I already liked that world.
He rides on a giant cat. That's metal as fuck. Yeah.
Thank you. So this is me. And then my family, I already told you, like, we're super dramatic. I had no brothers. I have sisters. So I was able to be like really like, just express myself. If something bothered me at home, like I was allowed to cry about it. You know what I mean? So being like really like oh my god, like you know, so I was into like some hair stuff. And again, I told you I couldn't listen to any music that wasn't Jesus music.
Right.
That being said, thankfully, guitar shred is guitar shred. You know what I mean? So there was this band called White Cross. And if you listen to the guitars, like if I played you some of their songs, like it is like face melting, like virtuosity type of stuff. And I couldn't play it. And I never actually learned at first to play. I just liked listening to it. So I would go to Franconia Park in Satterton with my headphones on and my little cassette tape player, just like walking, because my parents would go, it's very important to walk. You need to walk. So we'd all go like on a family walk, and I'm listening to White Cross, just like having my mind blown by all this shredding. So first time I took a guitar lesson was a dude came to our house and he showed me like a lick from this band called Tourniquet. That was another metal band. And he also showed me the opening lick for Enter Sandman. Bear in mind that he showed me this lick and I'd never heard the song before. Nor did I hear the song for years later. I just learned the boom, boo-doom, boo-doom, doo-doom, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He showed me some, like, how to do palm mutes. Because I didn't know what palm mutes were. I didn't know you needed distortion for it because I've been playing on an acoustic up until, like, just recently. So I just got, like, the sound of it was something that was amazing. And I always listened to it. I always sang along with it. But I never played any metal in, like, a band setting until, like, 2016 was the first time I was ever in a metal band.
Was that Dismal?
That was Dismal, yeah. So I'd always listened to punk rock gave way into hardcore. So I go to hardcore shows all the time. I even dress like hardcore, but like the kind, like the emo looking hardcore guy. So not the shorts and the backpack and the hoodie, but like the white V-neck T-shirt and the pants cuffed to like this kind of thing and like really nice Italian shoes kind of hardcore. Like it was like the nicer dressed kind, like, and it kind of gave way to metalcore and all that. So I've been listening to that stuff and those kinds of bands for years. You know, Shai Hulud, you know, like Figure 4, Hatebreed, like all these, like, you know, I went to Furnace Fest in 2000. When did I go to Furnace Fest? I think it was in 2000. Like just seeing all these bands and that's the stuff I listened to, played a little bit, but never like all out metal. I'd never been in a metal band. Most of the stuff I was in, even Lovelore, was like kind of Weezer, and then started evolving. I started listening to a lot of Pink Floyd and started getting kind of proggy, as in like I wrote a song that was in 5/4 and like started getting into like trying to put that kind of stuff in, and I just wanted to play like Floyd and use a lot of reverb. So metal was always a love, but never an actively like play in it. Yeah. So when I got the opportunity to join that band, like it really kicked my butt. Like I'd never had to play that distorted and that clean in my entire life. Because when you're playing like Movies with Heroes, we're playing through Marshall stacks, and you know, it's over the top, and you know, I had a lot of chops in that band, but you got to be like clangy and kind of jangly in a way, because it's supposed to be full of emotion, and it's supposed to, you know, we're like post emo kind of like hardcore sounds, but you didn't have to be perfectly clean, even though you were. Metal, it's like machine gun exact. I'd never had to play like that in a band until that band, so that was a learning experience for me. That's probably why I did it as well. Yeah, because I'd been living in Bethlehem. I've been teaching, and I was teaching at the time. I wasn't working in sales at George's anymore, and I was just doing that. And it was actually my wife, when I got the opportunity, she's like, "You should take that. You should join. You should go to the tryout." Oh my gosh! Like I even know like I didn't know I could get that worked up in terms of nerves with playing music. Yeah. To go and like have this tryout with all these guys that are 10 years younger than me, and try to like play the stuff that I've never played with an 8-string, like, and trying to like put in like a drop tuning, and it was utter madness. But fun. A lot of fun.
That's awesome. So, you know, you just said working sales in George's, and I literally just looked down at my floor and I just put something together, and that is that I'm pretty sure before we met, right?
Yes.
Hold on. This is going to take a second here. That gotta unplug some things. That you sold me this trio pedal.
I did.
I'm pretty sure you were like, dude, you got to check this out. This thing's amazing. The way it. How weird is that?
I totally did. And like I've been working on myself, in that I don't tell people everything that I remember about them. Like it's a thing I've been working on recently, because I found out that I might have a couple drops of, like, they call them like super memorizers or whatever.
Yeah, where, like, I would guess that as you're playing entire CDs of stuff. I think you've already admitted to that. But,
yes. So I made a kid cry once, and he wasn't a kid. We were in our 20s, and I saw him at a diner, and I walked up to him, and I said like, hey, and I said his name, and he's just looking at me blankly. So what I did to try to make him feel more comfortable was I began to recite more things about him so he'd know that I was a true friend. And we used to take like standardized tests together. So I may or may not have told him his sister's name and told him where he lived and told him like his friends' names and told him like what car he came into my sister's birthday party that was at this park and like everything about him. He starts crying.
Oh my God.
Like, and he's like, I don't know you, man. Like this. And I had never experienced that kind of thing before. So now a lot of times when I'm in situations where I remember something very clearly, I play dumb a little bit. Like I don't tell him. Yeah. And then people are like, hey, are you? And I'm like, I think I do remember that. So I can be normal and not freak anybody out. Yeah. So like I'll see kids that I had in kindergarten at the YMCA, and I'll be walking in the mall, and I'm like, and I'll say their name, and they're like, and I'm like, oh yeah, stranger danger, I forgot. And they're like, Mr. Chim? And I'm like, and my wife's like, oh, because this is what I do. I don't like remembering people. I just do. You kind of just associate it with that. So yes, I did tell you that.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, it's really funny. Like right as you said that, like I was like looking down, and I was like, oh my God, I'm pretty sure. And then
yeah, awesome. I loved that job.
I never use it. That's not true.
Success.
That's not true. I use it. I use it to just jam, but like I never practically use it, I guess is what I'm getting at. But yeah. So are you now currently playing still with Aaron West?
Yes.
That's still going on. I've been listening to some of that stuff. I listened to the Asbury Park live album. It's so good. And
Thank you, man.
You recently shared that video of you opening the vinyl for the first time. Yeah. And that was like one of my favorite things I've seen. But
thank you, man.
How did that come about, like playing there?
That one's a really random story. It came about by two things. The lead singer of that band, Dan Campbell, and I happened to be in a badminton class together at Monco that we were both taking. He was taking as an elective, and funnily enough, when you talk about like serendipitous events, I was taking it for the second time, not because I failed it, but the second time I was auditing it. I had so much fun in the class. My parents both teach at Monco. I'm not paying for Monco, right? So I just decided to take the class again because it was also a weightlifting class, so it kind of forced me to be in the gym. And like back then, I was still like, even though I was doing musical stuff, I still had this idea that maybe like if I stayed swole enough, like maybe I could walk on at wherever I transferred to. I still had dreams of playing like football, so I'm like no neck type of time. And he and I are in this class together. And I'd seen him around because I've been to shows and he was in the scene. I'd seen him back when he was in the band called The Premier. Then fast forward 1 bajillion years, I saw him a couple times at Temple. I think he was an English major and I was at music. Say him on and off, hey man, Chiemena, right? Hey, Soupy, right? And they would go on from there. Then I had done some stuff with a friend of mine named Eric Sirianni. And somehow Dan knows Eric. Eric is one of those guys in the music scene that just knows everybody. So he's on Eric's website and listed under my name. Unbeknownst to me, Eric lists vocals, guitar, saxophone. So that, what is that, 9-letter word? Dan, I'm just out of the blue. I see that the Wonder Years starts following me. And I'm like, wait. So I go, and they have like half a bajillion followers, but they don't follow many people. So I'm like, this is weird. And then out of the blue, I get a DM. It says, hey, this is Dan, and I was wondering if you'd be interested in playing this New Year's show and possibly playing on this record. And I hadn't played saxophone on even a semi-regular basis in years by this time. Like, I hadn't played at all. So I get this thing. I tell my wife about it. I'm like, yeah, that's so nice. Like, he found out about it from Eric on the website, so I'm just going to tell him no and be like, I don't play anymore. And my wife's like, you better say yes. So everybody's like, is your wife Batman? But like, no, when she's like, I think I don't, like, she's like, if it's good cop, bad cop or whatever, like, I'm like, oh, thank you. And she's like, do it. So she told me to take this, to do this thing. I break out my saxophone and start learning songs from the stuff they sent me. This is the set list. We have one rehearsal maybe before this New Year's show. And they wanted me to play tenor, but I didn't own a tenor. So I play this show, have one of the best times that I've had in years. It was just one of those times where you're so used to shows being this kind of fly-by-night type of thing that you hope works. So it was very strange to be a part of something that was so organized. Like, so sold out. The show is sold out. This many people are going to be here. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. When we come at this time, this is going to happen. This is going to be where we're going to be for the green room. This is, just like scheduled.
Yeah.
And everything working. And on top of that, they're supposed to pay you money afterwards. Like, when you're a musician, you're used to giving people money so that you can play. Like, that's how much I want to play, right? Yeah. So that happened. And then he's like, yeah, this is great. I'd love for you to get to play on the record. So on that day, December 31st, he hands me a tenor saxophone. Unfortunately, the guy who owns this tenor saxophone developed something with his lungs that he can't play saxophone anymore. So it's like a long-term borrowing mint. And I'm playing this horn that I'd never played before. I'd never played tenor a day in my life. He gives me the horn. First time I play it is January 2nd. January 14th, we're in the studio recording an album, and I'm supposed to play tenor on this thing, right? So when you talk about things moving quickly, like my wife's just like, yeah, that's about right, because this is the kind of stuff that happens to me for some reason.
Yeah.
So I get to play on this record and have this thing frozen in time. The record seems to be a hit on the scene, so we end up getting to play a couple shows. And then we are supposed to play these two shows in Asbury Park, and that's where this live thing came from. So I find it hilarious that full circle. I go and get a degree in guitar. I break myself to play this instrument. Still am, and the thing in which I'm in something that's not in quotes. The most successful thing I've ever been a part of is the instrument that I started learning because I didn't want to play piano like my sisters. And it's the instrument that my parents, that saxophone, Chiemena, you have a special anointing for the saxophone. Like, this is my parents' dream instrument. The thing that I didn't play for years is the thing that is actually like, I'm actually making some money off of it and being in something that's successful at all this guitar time. I'm not saying it's not successful, but it's just hilarious.
But it's, yeah.
I told my wife, like right before I played that show, I said, wouldn't that be funny if this thing actually worked and it's on the thing that I play the least?
The least.
Yeah. So I'm a saxophone and banjo player in this band. And, I got to learn banjo too. So he said, he asked me, there's banjo on the record. So he said, would you mind playing it live? Have you ever played banjo? I said, no. He said, would you play banjo? I said, I'm eating if you're treating. So if you provide the banjo, I'll play it. So I got to another excuse to get to learn. Like, I don't know how to play the banjo necessarily. I could gun to my head, I could play it, but I know how to play the songs on the record. So it's just fun. It's just strange and fun.
See, it's funny because you say, how do these things keep happening where, it's just so quick and all. They keep happening because you can do it. There's no one else who can pull that off. That's you, that's why it keeps happening, because you are very successful at, to me, it sounds like that's even when you shine, like when you are put on that spot and that, you have to produce, you do it. You do the work,
No,
and you've done the work to get there to do it. So.
I think I might agree with you. I think that's why I'm forcing myself to do this stuff, because I don't normally, I seem to like to be, I don't like to be put under pressure, but when I do, that's when something happens. So that's why I'm going to buy this mic. I'm going to do this. I'm going to spend money on it. So if I don't, now I feel bad, and then it'll force me to do it. Or half the time, if I'm not wanting to, then my wife makes me do it. She's like, you should do this. This will be good for you. I think you should do it. I have a good feeling about this. So the thing that I've tried to do, the thing that I've tried to build my musical career around, especially as an older person, people always ask me, and my wife knows this, and anybody who knows me from before knows this too. People always ask, what's the people that are single, what's the this when you get married, or what's the this, or what's that when you have kids, and all this stuff. And I tell them straight up, the thing that I had to get to come to terms with at first, with being in like a long-term relationship, ending up married and stuff like that, is if I do this thing, I may not become the greatest guitarist that ever lived. Right? And they start laughing, but these are like seriously the thoughts that you have, or the thoughts you kind of need to have if you're going to excel. But the thing that I wanted to do, no matter what, because you get to know a lot of musicians, you got to have a lot of different teachers, meet a lot of different people. The thing that I've refused to do with any type of gaining of skill is I've refused to treat people differently because of that skill, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, absolutely.
So I know so many dudes that can really, really play well, but I would never recommend them to anybody outside of their talent because they're just not nice people. And I understand that when you do this thing, I think you have to go out of your way to be nice, because you get so involved with working on something for yourself. And most of the time you spend is for yourself and by yourself and working on this craft. And most of the time, you are correct, most people won't understand you. Most people, as a teacher, the reason I enjoy teaching so much, well, I love getting to show just a little bit of something to somebody. But the other thing that makes it fun for me is that I am under the firm belief that almost no one likes it as much as I do in terms of my students. So I'm not beating on them that they need to practice for 4 hours a day because that's the only way you're going to. Most of them aren't planning on doing anything with it more than just enjoying themselves, right?
Yeah.
So you don't need to be a jerk. In fact, it actually helps out if you are nice, because then more grace is given to you. In that, when I joined the metal band, I could play guitar well, but I couldn't play metal as well as somebody else. But I think they liked me, and I happened to also play guitar. Because you can kind of fit yourself to what works for them. When I played saxophone and tenor for 2 weeks before being on a record, I tried to play my best, but I kind of thought of like what not to play so I don't put myself in a position to mess it up. So if you listen to that record, the first record, even the live one, you're going to hear me playing a lot of stuff that if I were in a choir, I'd be playing the alto parts. They help keep it together, but they don't stand out. You keep it together because that's all I knew on the horn at that time. The only notes I could play that weren't going to squeak. The solo, that was an anomaly. I just he told me I needed to play a solo like Clarence. And I just started listening to Springsteen.
No pressure.
And I'm like, please. So I started trying to listen to kind of his style and just okay, I'm going to do this. So I didn't really get to put the solo together until we were supposed to record it. And they're like, go in there and do a take. And I'm like, come on, don't squeak. Come on, keep it together just for that moment. I need 20 seconds of this whole thing working for me. But you be nice. Just relate to people as a human being and appreciate them in that kind of way. And I feel like that has given me more opportunities than just being skillful at something. Because then maybe the next person will mention you and be like, yeah, he's actually fun to work with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I have a couple lists. I have the fun to work with people, and sometimes they don't have the same skill as another group of people. I have the amazing players that are also nice, and then there's the amazing players who you only ask if you're really, really desperate for somebody on a gig, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to call this guy. Hey, friend, because you know they're not nice. You don't want them to meet your children, and so I just tried to that's what struck me about when I met you. I was like, this guy's good, and this guy is nice, but those two don't go together in our world.
Yeah,
they usually don't. So I met you, and I'm like, he loves music. I think he loves music as much as I love music. And I think we can talk about it and be brown and be nerds and not have any of it be like, oh, why did you like that? Right. And why do you like this thing? And why are you dressed like this? And what kind of band is that? And you play guitar? No, you play keyboards, don't you? You're a drummer, aren't you? Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's the whole premise of this whole thing that I've been doing is that I'm just tired of people. I'm honestly just tired of the idea of a guilty pleasure. I don't like it. I'm just say you like something. It's fine.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be great. You don't have to say it's the greatest thing ever or anything. Just I like that and just like it, man.
Yes, it's only I feel like I've only gotten comfortable. I've always been some type of nerd, but I've been a nerd hiding in an athlete's body. So it let me get away with being nerdy and not necessarily having to show it.
Yeah.
But like in my 30s, I feel like the thing I've learned is just like owning it.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that show. Yeah, I watch anime. Yeah, I'm a grown up. You know, but like, first of all, anime's not for kids anyways. And then if you go back long enough with cartoons, adults were watching the cartoons in the movie theaters, not the kids.
Yeah. Oh
right?
my God, yeah.
So like, but like, you know, before I'd have to feel like, oh, maybe I can't say that. Like, I gotta kind of defend myself. And then being like a black dude, like people have all these preconceived notions on what I am. And then sometimes it's easier, or it was easier to just kind of be that like a little bit. You know what I mean? Instead of just being like fully me. So, you know, my wife lets me be myself, and she let me know that I didn't have to be the thing she said that kind of influenced my musical career as well, and like how I was trying to live my life. She said, you don't have to be perfect. And no one had ever, maybe people had said that to me before, but it never hit like that.
Yeah.
And like it broke me down. Like, I mean, like crying, like sobbing tears, because I realized that I was trying to like live this thing. And not like I was trying to live this straight-laced life, but everything I thought had to be done to the complete nth degree, and there was no room for any type of compromise in myself and all this stuff. And it caused me a lot of stress and a lot of strain. And coming full circle, now getting to enjoy it again. When I graduated from Temple, after like I'd gone straight from movies with hero stuff into Temple, into finally getting that degree that quote unquote helped me leave that band. And when the end of that happened, I stopped playing. I put my guitar under my bed, and that was about it. So my wife's still trying to like coax me into playing or doing something. I will play now and then, but it wasn't anything that I was doing on a regular basis. I graduated in 2009, didn't play for like 6 months, then did something, but wasn't really playing in a band anymore, wasn't doing anything, nothing. Until, actually that's how I feel like I ended up meeting you again through that. I got that gig
Prism?
At Prism.
Yeah.
So I called up two of my schoolmates at Temple, and I was like, yo, you want to play a gig on a regular basis on Thursdays? So we just started playing this jazz gig, and anything else we wanted to do ended up like I'm in that band. I'd already played with them like once or twice. No, this was before. I ended up playing with them. Now we're in this band, Good Morning Daydreamer. And My Home is the Sea is that drummer from the Prism gig, and the bass player, the upright bass player in that band. In Good Morning Daydream actually doesn't play bass, even though he has a degree in bass. The drummer has a degree in drums, and I have a degree in guitar, but he plays like guitar and keyboards. So that band kind of came out of that relationship of seeing them week in, week out, and that was kind of my entrance back into playing music on a regular basis, was that gig. So
it's awesome.
Yeah.
It all comes back.
It really does.
You know? Well, at this time, I'm going to have to put you through the gauntlet.
All right.
I've kind of switched things around, very, very minor tweak. We're going to do the one-hit wonders first before we go into the top 10 countdown.
Okay.
But the one-hit wonders, which will be interesting, since you have such a wide, eclectic taste. Here we go. First one, Sammy Hagar or David Lee Roth?
Oh, shoot. I'm going to say David Lee Roth.
Yeah, good answer. Yeah. Good answer. Biggie or Tupac?
Oh, man. Okay. I'm going to say Tupac.
Okay. All right. That's 2 for Pac, 1 for Biggie so far now, episode 3. Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Funnily enough, I like neither of them. Okay. But if I could only have one, I would have Nirvana.
Okay. All right. Beatles or the Stones?
Wow, these are good. Stones.
Yeah, good answer. As a kind of subtext of that one, do you have a favorite Beatle? I know you said you're not really a Beatles guy, but do you have a favorite Beatle?
I think being and trying to be a semi-career musician, I would say Paul McCartney, because he was never a bass player, but he played bass for that band. Yeah. And then he got pretty good at piano, and then he did something in his own right and then continued and then continued and then continued. His longevity is amazing. Yeah, so Paul McCartney, I would say.
Great answer. Final one-hit wonder, Prince or MJ?
Ooh. I'll be honest about this one. I'm going to now say Prince because the more and more I find out about the other things Michael Jackson did, the more and more I can't listen to his music.
Yeah.
That being said, I used to be, when we lived in the Middle East, and my mom would be in the supermarket. We lived in like a compound, an international compound, but we'd have to go out of it to go to the supermarket. I would stand up in the cart, and I couldn't sing any Michael Jackson. Again, I wasn't listening to that kind of music, but it would be on in the store, and I would 3-year-old break dance in the cart for all these Muslim folk to come and watch me dance, and I was the top of the pops then. So I thank him for that, and the music was good, but maybe I don't have to feel bad because Quincy Jones wrote most of it anyway. So.
That's right. And Rod Templeton, don't
yes.
Rod Templeton. All right, so those were the one-hit wonders. Here is the top 10 countdown.
Oh shoot!
Here we go.
Okay.
What was your first Jawn? What was the first thing that like really just grabbed you? It can be anything. Doesn't have to be music. Could be music. Could be a song. Just what was the first thing that really hit you in your face?
The first thing that hit me really, really hard that I couldn't stop listening to was this band called Sunny Day Real Estate. And the album was How It Feels to Be Something On. That album is like my favorite album of all time, type of like best band, oh my gosh, like I saw him live and I'm gonna cry about it type of thing. And I get emotional about music, but that guy, like, it takes the cake. So How It Feels to Be Something On. All
right. Number 2, what is your current Jawn? What are you vibing right now? Can be anything.
Yes. So what I've been doing, I didn't get to mention it before, but I've been playing guitar so much that my body's been starting to kind of form different like chronic habits. I didn't know my elbow problems are from guitar playing and sitting like just so for hours. I went to the chiropractor and he popped both my shoulders back into place, and we're retraining them how to be in socket, and I didn't know they'd been out of socket for years maybe. So my current thing, I've been trying to listen to a lot of music, but I won't go too far into it. But my current thing is playing scales in groups of 5, playing a scale on 2 different strings at the same time, kind of overlapping. Yeah, that's like, I'm like obsessed with this idea. It's from Kurt Rosenwinkel, is this jazzer, and on this song called Minor Blues. That's my thing right now. The solo he takes on Minor Blues, he does this thing where he's doing that groups of 5 rapidly, and it's just a way I've never thought about the guitar before, and it's delicious. I mean, it stumps me too.
That is awesome. Number 3, what was your first concert?
First concert. This is gonna be great. Okay, first concert was here in PA. It was I think it was actually at the Spectrum. But the reason I say I think it was actually at the Spectrum, I was 7. So I didn't know where we went. I just knew we rode in my friend's van. And I went and saw this band. There's this singer. His name is Michael W. Smith.
Yeah.
And
familiar.
I saw this band that I really liked called DC Talk. They were like a rap hip hop group. I saw them open up for Michael W. Smith at the Spectrum. And like, it was so, they were like, first time I'm seeing like fog machines and smoke and like all this stuff. It was amazing. That was my first concert, and it was glorious.
Fantastic. Number 4, and this one has taken on its whole new life due to 2020 being what 2020 is. What was the last concert you were at?
Oh, shoot. The last concert that I was at, I'm trying to think of one that I was at that I didn't play, because I haven't been going to a lot of them. I played with one band that I'm in called Sierra. We played in Lansdale at the I think it's at the Legion. What's the one on 2nd Street right by the train station?
Yeah, that's the American Legion. Yeah, we played the Legion on the 29th of February. That was the last one. Wow. I know. Pour a little liquor out. Number 5, what was your favorite concert? Best show you ever been to?
Oh my gosh, that's a rough question. Okay,
Right?
best show that I have. That's hard. So I'm gonna pick one, and I would have to say I saw this band called Jaga Jazzist. It looks like Jaga Jazzist. They're a Norwegian 13-piece like techno jazz band.
Okay.
I saw them at the Unitarian Church in Philly, and it was one of those shows where you used to get the email blasts like, yo, they're playing. So I'm like, okay, we're going to the show. Go to the show. Hardly knew much of their music, and it was one of those moments where I look around at the people during this one song, and I'm like, oh, look at these poor sods. Look at them all crying, not knowing that their tears running down my own face. Like, it was one of those moments.
Yeah.
And those are few and far between. Like, I love music, but sometimes you experience something that surprises you. And I'd never seen somebody mix that skill with, like, make it danceable and just be so, like, honest in their music. So, yeah, Jaga Jazzist at the Unitarian years ago.
Awesome. I love it. Number 6, who did you never see live that you wish you would have? This person can be alive and or dead.
Wait, just one person?
Yeah, or band.
Okay.
Or what?
One person, I will say B.B. King.
Oh, God, yeah.
My friend and his dad kept going, and I kept saying I'd get him the next time he came around, and I missed it.
Yeah.
You know, and I even missed like the wheelchair years, like everything like that, and I should have gone.
That happened to me with Elliott Smith. He right before he had killed himself, he played, I want to say, like the Truck in Philly, and I was like, I can't make it this one, but I'll get the next one. And then,
Yes.
you know. Number 7. Name an unappreciated Jawn. This is anything you love that you wish more people would be into.
Let me see something that I'm actually going to go for a food.
Okay, perfect.
There's a food in Nigeria that people in the northern part of Nigeria are known for being able to cook it. It's called suya, so I apologize to any vegetarians and vegans. It's made with beef, and it's like if they'd find like how to like do like strips of steak like on like wooden skewers, like roasted over a fire, and the way they spice it, like I'm thinking about it and my mouth is watering right now. Like I wish that more people got to try this, and I wish that there were suya places in the United States because I've never seen it here, only in Nigeria.
I think we just found your next entrepreneurship right there.
Yes.
Man.
Yes.
Number 8, and we might have answered this on the first one, but what's your favorite album?
Yeah, I would say How It Feels to Be Something on that. That's my favorite. Sometimes, no, I would say that one there.
Yeah. Perfect. Number 9, name an artist whose output you will consume anything they release, even if you have to apologize for it.
That's Jeremy Enoch, who's the lead singer of that band, actually. Jeremy Enoch,
yeah.
Anything he does, he's one of those guys that can, like, do no wrong for me. If it's something that I don't like right away, I'm like, okay, it's me. Something's wrong with me. This is good. I know it's good. I just need to find, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, I'll come back in a few months, and maybe I'll get it. Yeah.
Yes.
And number 10, the final question. What is your favorite Jawn of all time? Again, can be anything.
My favorite thing to do, and I say this because I hardly do it now, but I think my favorite thing to do is to sing. So all the projects that I'm in right now, I'll sing a tiny bit, I'll sing background vocals, I'll do that kind of thing. But singing has always been the thing that has always put me through most anything. I used to get night terrors as a child. I used to stay up late at night or not sleep at all and do all kinds of things like this. And the thing that my mom always did, she always had me sing with her. So you sing to drive away the dark, you sing to not be afraid. So yeah, my favorite Jawn of all time would be singing.
Beautiful answer. I love it. Well, it only tells me that you have to get all of that equipment together and just start recording and writing and doing all that.
Yes, you'll see it.
If anyone wants to find you on social medias, how do they track you down?
Oh, if they look for Chiemena, that's the easiest way. If you look for that on Facebook or Instagram, I have a a YouTube page under the same name where I just like talk about guitar a little bit and play solos that I like or solos that a student showed me. So yeah, any of the major social medias, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook, I'm under Chiemena Ukazim.
All right. I will share some links as well so people can easily access them.
I appreciate that.
And stuff like that. Brother, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I hope
man.
I hope you had a good time.
Oh, this is great.
Like I like to say, I hope I wasn't too intrusive. But
No.
But thank you so much. And I guess I will talk to you soon.
Hey, man, I'll see you later.
My thanks again to the one and only Chiemena Ukazim for blessing me with an incredible conversation. You can find him on Instagram at Chiemena_Ukazim and on Twitter at Chiemena Ukazim. And you can find him on YouTube by his name. Check him out on the latest release from Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties, live from Asbury Park, available on Apple Music and Spotify, and on vinyl. Actual honest-to-goodness wax. How cool is that? If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast on all of your favorite podcast apps and share it across all of the social medias. Tell your friends about it. And if you strive to be a truly super awesome Jawn Scout and get that Jawn Scout merit badge for citizenship of the world, please go that extra mile and rate and review us. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/yothat'smyjawn for updates and live streams. And find Yo That's My Jawn on YouTube for the video companion to this podcast and more. It's like this audio podcast, but you can see my dumb face. Like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. We want to hear from you. Reach out and touch some Jawn. But that's all we got for you this week, gang. Episode 3. Did I do okay? You'd tell me, right? Like, you wouldn't keep that a secret from me. We're all buddies, and buddies don't keep secrets from each other, okay? Good. I'm glad we worked that out. Till next time, everybody! Hey yo, displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Your taste in music doesn't have to be measured. Yo, That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production, written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Special thanks goes out to Fox Run Brands, Natalie Runkle Tompkins, and of course, the very lovely Katie Dobney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to see on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com. But until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure and shout to the world, yo, that's my Jawn.